So together we are transforming our industry for the better, and we are making it represent the diverse world around us, and I think that's pretty epic. And so this whole idea of creating a positive impact on the world and leveraging our collective resources and energy and potential is by definition this idea of conscious capitalism. And so there is no one better to talk about the idea of conscious capitalism than the founder of this movement and also the author of the book Conscious Capitalism, which I think many of you have by now. So I'd love to welcome to the stage Raj Sisodia.
Wow.
I know, we got
This is my first Pulse experience. You know.
Amazing.
My pulse is racing.
Do you need a pulse check?
No, I think I'm going to make
We've
it.
had dad jokes for days.
I will make it.
All right, so we talked a lot about this whole spirit of unstoppable communities. So tell us a little bit about you. What's something that you are totally unstoppable at?
Well, you know, in the last 12 years or so, as we've been building the Conscious Capitalism Movement worldwide, I came to be known as the Energizer Bunny of the movement. I was doing like 80, 90 talks a year all over the world, spreading these ideas, you know. So I got an award, the Energizer Bunny Award from Conscious Capitalism. So I feel like I'll go anywhere and do anything to spread the idea that business can be a tremendous force for good, a force for healing, a force for reducing suffering in the world and bringing more joy into the world if we do it with higher consciousness, which I see a lot of that here.
Absolutely. So we have the Energizer Bunny of conscious capitalism, and then we have the Energizer Bunny of customer success.
All right.
So you're in good company here.
Yes.
So as I said, we had your book here, and I think we've had a lot of takers of the book. So if you had to distill conscious capitalism into a few key principles just to sort of level set for everyone here, can you tell us a little bit about what those would be?
Yeah, so conscious capitalism seeks to address the why, what, who, and how of business in a different way than we've done it in the last 50 years, last couple of 100 years, really. The why has always been about profit. Mm-hmm. Generally, most people say profit is the only purpose of business, but we say no, businesses need to have their own higher purpose. Every company should have its higher purpose that is rooted in finding profitable solutions to the problems that exist in the world, and by doing so, reducing suffering and bringing more joy. So the why is higher purpose, the what is create value for all stakeholders. You're focused here on customers, of course, that's very vital, but employees, their families, communities, suppliers, investors, the environment, right? All of those are important stakeholders, and we need to simultaneously create value for all of them. So that's the second, higher purpose, stakeholder integration, and then conscious leaders who are in service to the people and the purpose of the organization. They're not all about ego and power and money, etc. You know, that's not their primary motivator. And then a culture where people actually look forward to going to work. The sad reality is that worldwide only 20% of people are engaged in their work, 80% are disconnected, or many of them hate their work. That heart attacks are 20% higher on Monday morning. 4 a.m. Monday morning is the peak of heart attacks, right? But these companies, conscious companies, have cultures where people love going to work. They're inspired by what they do. There's a lot of trust, there's authenticity, there's transparency, and most of all, there's caring. And I think that's, if I had to distill it all down, it comes down to putting people at the center of everything that we do, and you just talked about that, right? I love the quote from Herb Kelleher, who built Southwest Airlines into the greatest airline, I think, in the history of the world. And he said, the business of business is people, yesterday, today, and forever. And those people, of course, include customers, but to me, even more centrally, they include employees, you know, and the families of employees and everybody, all the humans that we touch, and by extension, all of the other life on this planet and the planet itself, right? All of those are part of flourishing in the world. And that's what conscious companies are able to do. And my research shows that when you do all these things, these companies actually outperform the market by a 9-to-1 ratio in my research in a book called Firms of India. But now, we don't guarantee that, obviously, but it shows that there is a dramatic outperform, even while you're taking care of your people and, you know, paying your suppliers well and investing in the environment and communities, etc. That does not come at the expense of shareholders or profit. In fact, profits skyrocket in a way when all of those things are working together. So it's really a win-win outcome for everybody.
Makes a lot of sense as we talk about humanizing product in our product keynote this morning, putting humans at the center of how we make decisions in customer success, humans at the center of our community platform that we just acquired through Insighted, and humans at the center of how we build and shape the industry. We have a lot of leaders, a lot of different people in different levels, and I think even at an entry level, I would consider people leaders in their customer relationships. So if we're talking to people and leaders of all different levels, how do we make some of those key principles actionable? What are things that we can do in our day-to-day to instill conscious capitalism, in what we're working on?
Well, I think the first thing for each of us to ask is, do I have a purpose in my own life? Have I thought about that? What is my life about? Is it just about making money and acquiring all the material success and so forth, and then moving to Florida at some point, I guess, right? Or is it actually about doing something significant with this life? So it's not just about success, it's significance. What will your legacy be? What do you leave behind? What is it that brings you alive, right? What is it that only you can bring? What is the gift that you were born with? And I think that's a critical thing. For me, my purpose came to me in a way when I was writing a book called Firms of Endearment, which is about companies that are loved by everybody, which is how I discovered these principles. And I was writing some of the stories of these companies, and I was so moved that there could be such deep humanity inside a for-profit, publicly traded company that I was literally moved to tears. And I said to my co-author, David, sitting across the table, I said, David, I've never had tears of joy connected to my work. I've often experienced frustration and anger and disappointment, but tears of joy is not something we associate with work, but it is possible. And I said, I feel like my purpose just found me, that I want to dedicate the rest of my life to this story of business, that businesses built on love and care can actually flourish in this world and create value. So I define my purpose as to bring heart, healing, soul, and courage to business and leadership so that we can build a better world for all, and it has to work for everybody. And I think each of us can be in that inquiry, and many of you probably have a good sense of what is your real purpose. But to me, that's a starting point. It starts with personal purpose, and then you want to connect that to your corporate purpose, because they should not be completely disconnected or certainly not at odds with each other. So we want to live a life of meaning and purpose. This is a fundamental human drive. So I would be in that inquiry. And then think of yourself as leaders. Are you driven by service to the people of the organization, all the people, customers, employees, everybody, and to the purpose, or are you in it for your own ego? And that's always a danger sign for me. If you want to be a leader because of the power and money associated with it, you're not going to be a good leader. A true leader is there to take people to a better place, and you have to be motivated and inspired by that.
Are there you're inspiring me to talk about the CS and product industry specifically. I really like the idea of stopping to think about your why and your sense of purpose. When you think about the large majority of the people in the audience as customer success and product professionals, are there specific principles that we can all think to implement in our day-to-day practices, whether we're building a product or we're a Gainsight admin or we're building relationships with our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we want to create value for all of our stakeholders, and customers obviously are critical. I think of employees and customers like the two wings of the bird, right? You need both. Both are critically important stakeholders. When it comes to customers, it has to be focused on making their life better, improving the quality of their life, making their health and overall well-being, right, better. Now, if you think about overall marketing, I'm a professor of marketing originally before I got into all this, and I got frustrated with marketing because I felt like we spend a tremendous amount of money, but we're really not making life better for customers. Yeah, we're selling them stuff and getting them hooked on certain things, but ultimately it's not resulting in deeper life satisfaction, right, for the customers, and we're wasting a tremendous amount of money in the process. So to the extent that we're focused on elevating the existence and the quality of life of our customers, and even things that they may not even be aware of, that we know that they're actually going to have a positive impact on their life. If we can bring that to them, if we can earn their trust enough that we can lead them, not just follow them, but show them better ways, to do things, I think that is really critical. We have to be advocates on behalf of our customers, right? Which also means sometimes telling them not to buy our products. If we know that somebody else's product is better for them, then we should actually guide them towards the right choice for them, not what is good for our bottom line, but what is right for them. And that builds trust, it builds a relationship, and then over time, it also builds revenues for the company.
Have you seen any industries or companies or leaders who are particularly talented at practicing just that? It sounds like a hard decision to make when you have to think about the trade-offs of, or I imagine it could be, if not practicing these principles, the trade-offs of practicing conscious capitalism and then making hard decisions like telling a customer to go a different direction.
Yeah. No, I think many of the companies in our universe, Whole Foods, Container Store, Trader Joe, Wegmans, Patagonia. Patagonia is probably one of the best examples of a company that is really, really true to its purpose and its core values, which are around protecting the planet and the environment. And every decision they make, they will walk away from businesses, they will shut down businesses when they realize that it's now in conflict with their core purpose. And they've done that multiple times in their history. Costco is another great example. They've got their principles, they've got their purpose and their values, and they will not deviate from them. So for example, they only take a maximum 14% markup on all products, including generic drugs. Right? So customers trust that when you go to Costco, you get a good price on everything. Now, when it comes to generic drugs, some of their competitors will take a 500% markup, right? Because the cost of acquiring some of those drugs is extremely low, but they'll still sell it for a high markup, and Costco will sell it for just that small markup. Sometimes, and this is a good pointer to you, if you're buying generic medicines, you don't even have to be a member to go to Costco, and sometimes the price is 90% less than Walgreens or Walmart at Costco. Why? Because they're adhering to their principle.
And these principles sound highly transferable industry to industry.
Yes. It's about what you stand for and remaining true to that and letting everybody know, your customers, everybody cares. People care about the values, people care about the purpose and the impact that you're having in the world, especially the younger generations. They want to join companies that they believe are part of the solution, that are actually not contributing to the many problems that we face. So all of this, what I've discovered over these 15 years or so of doing research on this, if you do the right things, the humanly right things, the business results will follow. But make the human case first. Don't be driven by first a business case. Trust that if you do the right thing from a human standpoint, the business outcomes will be the right outcomes. And they're usually better than you could have imagined.
How would you suggest, what's step one and step two if I'm a junior person in my industry and I want to make this business case to do the right thing, but the right thing is hard? How do I make that case from a conscious capitalism lens to my leader? Do you have any advice for those people in the audience?
Well, you could give them a copy of my book.
With pleasure.
Chapter 7, I think, details the financial consequences of this, the fact is there is a very logical case to be made as to why these businesses perform as well as they do. Now, in the beginning, I was shocked. I said, how is it that these companies are performing 9-to-1 over the market over a 10-year period, even though they're paying their people much better? Costco was paying double of Walmart. They're investing in the customer experience. They're paying their suppliers well. They're investing in the local community. They're investing in the environment, and yet they're making more returns, right? And then we discover there's a whole bunch of business reasons why. They get tremendous loyalty from their customers, tremendous positive word of mouth. Their marketing budgets are often 90% less than the industry average. Their employee turnover is a tiny fraction. Costco was at that time 7%, Walmart was 70%. So imagine Walmart had to hire 2 million people every year to replace those who left voluntarily. Costco people come to work and never leave. So even though Costco pays double, their sales per employee are 3 times higher than Walmart's, right? And then you see the employee turnover is low. The employee engagement is extraordinary. Sure. Where the average is 20%, in these companies it might be 95%, right? The legal costs are lower. People don't sue each other. They trust each other. The administrative costs are lower. You don't need a lot of managers telling people what to do. People are self-organizing, self-managing, and self-motivating. And these companies are very resilient in tough times. So once you understand the logic, how that flywheel gets going and how it works over time, it creates extraordinary value and it reduces most of the friction that we associate in business.
Makes
right?
sense.
All of that goes away and you just create value. We talk about 8 kinds of wealth. It's financial, capital, intellectual, social, emotional, spiritual, ecological, physical well-being for all stakeholders, right? Whereas traditional businesses might say we just make money and everything else is a side effect. And many of those are negative. We can't really afford the so-called negative side effects anymore. They're destroying our future, they're destroying the planet. And we have to change. Business as usual is no longer an option.
That's the punchline of the century, especially after the past couple of years. I agree. So let's talk about the future, just to kind of round it out. When you look to the future, what does the future look like from the lens of conscious capitalism?
Well, you know, we've been around, as I said, since 2008. That's when we started the movement. I just came back from Brazil. You know, we have 11 chapters just in the country of Brazil, all over the country, in Mexico, in Spain, in Portugal, in Israel, you know, Chile, Colombia. We have chapters here in San Francisco, about 40 other US cities. We feel like we're in the middle of a tipping point or reaching a tipping point where the old story of business is not working, we know that. But there is a new story of business that we can tell that is inspiring, right, that is actually compelling in terms of its success evidence, right? And so we believe that we are in the middle of a shift. Purpose is becoming something you hear about a lot. Stakeholder versus shareholder, that debate I think is going away. It makes sense, it's logical that we think about the well-being of everybody. Conscious leadership, of course, leadership matters a great deal. Better leaders make for a better world. And culture, everybody recognizes the importance of culture. As Drucker said, culture eats strategy for lunch. Right? So you can have the best strategy in the world. If you don't have the right culture, it won't work. So I am optimistic that we are actually getting it, and business is capable of changing very rapidly. We saw that during the pandemic, right? The ability of us companies to pivot and to suddenly adopt what seemed like radical innovations. I think all of that is happening in the realm of how we think about the business as well. And so I think within the next 3-4 years, these ways of thinking will become the default paradigm. This will not be an unusual idea anymore. And so with that, I think we can then create the kind of future that we need to create. You know, I'm reminded of Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. We are living in that moment right now. It's the best time in human history to be born a human being. Your chances of living a long life and get education and, you know, find meaning and purpose and fulfill, all of those are greater than ever before. It's a time of peace and prosperity relative to history. But we're also facing existential threats, whether it's climate change or species extinction or extreme inequality or the lack of diversity and inclusion and so forth. All of those have to be addressed, and they can only be addressed if business changes. And I see lots of indications that we are indeed changing, and then, you know, it'll be a sudden takeoff in that way.
If we all come together, better leaders. I love that. All right, Raj, your outgoing icebreaker questions, rapid fire word association to bring us home here. So you tell me the first word that comes to mind when I say impact.
Flourishing.
Conscious capitalism.
Love.
Community.
Thriving.
Pulse shoe game.
I'm lagging behind. I have nice socks, you know.
The socks count. Do the socks count?
I
think the socks count.
I don't know about that.
Amazing. Raj, thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Give it up for Raj. Appreciate it.